Hey everyone, Dr. Nicola here. Well, this is the final video in my series, Down and Dirty Truths About Chronic Lyme. I hope you have learned some things, had your eyes opened, been validated about certain things along the way. So most of all, I hope that this information was helpful to you. So as we wrap up today, I just wanted to share a little bit about how I treat chronic Lyme. I've obviously shared some snippets along the way already, but just to give you kind of like a synopsis. I've been treating Lyme since about 2004. I started. By 2006, 2007, it was pretty much all I'm doing. And then fast forward to today, it's like 99.5% of my practice. So I have like 2 patients that come to me for hormones, and everyone else is really sick chronic Lyme. But anyway, I love it. I love what I do. So, I mean, there's a few things to kind of to talk about. One is just that, when I start working with somebody, I certainly want to make sure we're getting the right testing. If they have testing through LabCorp or Quest or something like that, if it's positive, then I believe that, right? Some other doctors would be like, oh, it's a false positive. If it's positive, I believe it. But even then, we still need to get co-infection testing. Yep. So we've got the Lyme is the Borrelia burgdorferi, like textbook definition of Lyme, but there's also other strains of Borrelia that fall more under tick-1 relapsing fever. There's Babesia, Bartonella, Ehrlichia, Rickettsia, all the players, right? So we want to make sure, first of all, that we get some good, decent testing. So Lyme is a clinical diagnosis backed up with lab work, okay? So that means that it's not 100% lab work and it's not 100% like clinical presentation, like there's signs and symptoms and history and what's happening, right? We've got to blend those two things. So getting good testing is just good medicine, in my view. And that way we can really put together the most accurate roadmap and the most helpful protocol, making sure we're covering all the bases. I also, beyond the scope of this video, but I also then, I'm trying to get mycotoxin testing pretty much off the bat. There's other things that I'm looking for that I know can get in the way of Lyme treatment. And so I kind of look for those things as well. The next important thing is to say that it's so deeply important to me to listen to my patients. And that might sound really silly because it should be obvious, but it's not. Right? I have had so many patients come to me like traumatized, like medical PTSD, actual medical PTSD, because they've been to, dozens of different doctors. They've had every test. There's nothing wrong with them. They've been told it's anxiety or depression, or it's all in their head, or like being laughed at, being yelled at. I mean, the stories that I could share, but I won't, because let's keep this positive. It's horrific. It's really horrific what some people have been through. And so the most important thing to me as a practitioner is to be the listening, right? I want to be that person that cares, that listens, that will never tell you you're crazy, that will never tell you that your symptoms are all in your head, right? So foundationally, that's who I am as a practitioner. Like that's what I bring to my work, because I know that all this stuff is real that you're going through. And I know how horrible it is because I've seen thousands of people over the years like go through similar things, right? So, so that's the first thing that's really, really, really deeply important to me. Like it's one of my core values is to be trustworthy, to be understanding, to be caring. That's like very, very important and deep to my heart. So then as we get into the logistics, we talked about getting the testing, taking a full clinical history. Remember, we talked in one video about like, just because you don't have a known tick bite, just because you never had a bullseye rash, doesn't mean that you don't have Lyme, right? So we want to kind of try and get as accurate an assessment or diagnosis as possible. The things that I typically then will look at, I typically will not go to antibiotics right off the bat, even for people that want antibiotics. I start with herbal remedies first, partially for the reason that they can be a little bit more gentle, and I want to see how someone's going to react. Remember how we talked about the Herxheimer reaction? I'd like to kind of get the ball rolling with more natural treatments to assess that, because everyone's very individual there. And also that the herbs tend to have less side effects. And so there's less confusion about like if they're feeling worse, is it side effect? Is it, Herx? What is going on? So I do start with natural therapies. I also have this process that I do called a co-infection provocation. And again, beyond the scope of this video is to sort of talk through the nuts and bolts of it. Maybe I can do a different series on that. But it's a way that I use specific herbs in a specific order spaced a specific distance apart to like almost challenge or provoke the three biggies for me, the B's, the Borrelia, Babesia, and Bartonella. And it's a way for me to try and get a sense of which co-infection is playing what kind of role, which co-infection is dominant, which co-infection is like leading to which symptoms, contributing to which symptoms. And the reason is, like, if I give somebody a remedy for Borrelia and they start taking it, they take it for a week, nothing really happens. But then they start the one that's more targeted for Babesia. Oh, wow, their night sweats flare up, or they get shortness of breath, or whatever the different symptoms are that go with Babesia. And then they may start the one for Bartonella and go, yeah, I had a little bit more headaches, but not nearly as bad as the Babesia stuff. So that helps me to know like how to plan the roadmap. So that's where I start with many of my folks that I think can go into that kind of 3 to 4 week process. And if we are getting labs, then it's perfect. The labs take 3 or 4 weeks to come back. Then we can sit down again and say, okay, this is what the lab showed. Tell me what happened with the co-infection provocation. And we kind of merge those two pieces of information. Okay. Another really, really important thing, we talked in one of the videos about addressing the different forms of the Borrelia bacteria. Imperative to address co-infections, okay? We really need to suss out the co-infection piece. And I do that through good lab testing, like IGeneX, and through my co-infection provocation. And then, marry those two pieces of data, and then we assess, what's going on and what we're going to treat, right? So sometimes we'll have someone with 3 or 4 different infections, and we've got to prioritize, like, how are we going to treat which one? Sometimes we'll do a combination of medication and herbs to try and hit the different things. And that's where understanding medication interactions is so important too. Like the medication that we use for Bartonella reduces the efficacy of the medication we use for Babesia. So, there's all of that. That's complicated, but that's my job. So treating the co-infections. And then, like I said, I very much have an integrative approach. So while the majority of my patients do antibiotics at some point, like I have people that come to me and say, categorically, I don't want to do antibiotics. I'm like, fine, okay, we won't, no problem. I have some people where I'm like, oh, your gut could not handle that, or we need to work on your gut and get it stronger before we even talk about antibiotics. So there's a whole range of different things. I'm a huge fan of ozone therapy. We do a lot of ozone here. We do high dose vitamin C and nutrient IVs. And I think they're a really nice adjunct, but I'm also a huge proponent of what people can do at home to support like their detoxification. I'm getting ideas here of other videos and other series I want to do. I want to talk about like lifestyle factors, exercise, sleep, water, mindset. I mean, these things are all so important. They seem really basic, but they're all so important. So just, having people do what they can on their own. I'm huge on the dietary component. I think I've seen that help so many people. And it's something that you can take control over, right? So much of Lyme is like, it has you feeling so powerless and out of control. So what you put in your mouth is 100% within your control, right? So take that power back, and put the right things in your mouth. So yes, very integrative approach. And that's what I really love. And I love, actually very fortunate being here, trained as a naturopathic doctor. So I'm trained like really, really deeply in all the natural therapies, but also in California with the status of naturopathic doctors being able to prescribe antibiotics allows me to marry those two worlds and bring them together. And a lot of people want that. They want that integrative approach, and they like to have one person who can do both of those things. It wasn't always that way. When I started treating Lyme, I was not going to be prescribing antibiotics to anyone. No, I was like so overwhelmed by it. And thankfully I had great mentors who were MDs who were prescribing. And so I could sort of send the people to them for antibiotics, and I would handle the natural part. But then naturally over the years, I learned it and got more familiar and started, doing more antibiotic therapy. And now it's just a very regular part of what I do. I can't do IV antibiotics. That's out of scope for naturopathic doctors in California, but I can do oral and injectable. And I do actually a lot of bicillin, which is an intramuscular form of penicillin that's excellent for people's Lyme brain. So I do a lot of that. What else? So yeah, different ways that people can work with me. So I am taking new patients. So I work with people all over the country and the world. The caveat being, unless you're in California and I've seen you in person, I cannot prescribe antibiotics for you. Okay, so I can act more as a consultant. But my local patients who I do see in the office, I can prescribe antibiotics for. and that's valid throughout the state of California. So my practice is Restore Medicine, RESTOR medicine.com. There is no E on the end of restore, confusingly. Yes, I know, you're welcome. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. So restoremedicine.com, our number is 619-546-4065. If you were interested in scheduling it as a patient, then that would be the best way to get in touch. I am also on social media. I have, okay, so websites, Facebook, Instagram. Restore Medicine has their own stuff, and I have my own platform too. So restoremedicine.com, facebook.com/restore medicine, at Restore Medicine on Instagram. Okay. For my platform, drnicoladucharme.com, DrNicolaDucharme for Mary, E.com. And Facebook/Dr. Nicola Ducharme, Instagram at Dr. Nicola Ducharme, and TikTok at Dr. Nicola Ducharme. This is brand new. I'm trying to get with the modern age of Instagram and TikTok. I'm the Facebook generation. I won't lie. I turned 50 this year. I'm definitely the Facebook generation, but I'm trying to get better about it. There are blog posts on both websites. I love sharing information. I will be sharing much more coming into the new year. And like I said, the deep dive next year is going to be mindset and training the brain, rewiring the brain for healing. And I have programs I'm putting together relating to that. So keep eyes open for that. What else do I want to tell you? Yes, website, practice, Instagram, Facebook. Oh, I have a wellness community on Facebook, Dr. Nicola's Wellness Community. So that's a private group on Facebook. So you could check that out as well. And then obviously, well, not obviously, but then I have my YouTube channel, Dr. Nicola Ducharme. Okay, so drnicoladucharme.com, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Wow. All right, so I love to hear from you. If you have received value from this training, I would just send me a message, say hi. If you have topics or things that you would like for me to teach on, please reach out. I am more than happy to take those suggestions on board. Helps me get the creative juices flowing. And I already have a few ideas just from these few last videos of things that we could do. So anyway, all the best. I wish you healing from the bottom of my heart. I really wish you all the very best, and I will see you again soon. So this is a PS, but I realized I didn't really tell you much about my Lyme Ed for Patients program, and I wanted to do that. So a couple of things about that. We talked about how getting more information, getting educated online, just really getting up to speed on all the things you want to know, and without necessarily going to Dr. Google and going in the Facebook groups and down that whole rabbit hole. So I created a program called Lyme Ed for Patients. And it is an online self-paced learning program where you have a certain number of modules. There's almost 25 hours of content in that program. It's basically everything I know about Lyme disease put in an online program. When you join Lyme Ed, you have access to the material for life. The modules are everything ranging from, we do talk a bit introductory stuff at the beginning. What are the co-infections? What are the symptoms of the co-infections? How to test properly for Lyme? All the other bits and pieces that get diagnosed as something else, but really could be Lyme as the underpinning. And then I go into the allopathic treatment for Lyme. So all through the different antibiotics, the different classes of antibiotics, the different forms of the bacteria and which antibiotics work well and which ones cross the blood-brain barrier the best and all the things. And then there is a whole module on naturopathic support, everything from immune support, antimicrobials. There is an entire module on gut support and digestive health. There is an entire module on hormone balance. There is an entire module on detoxification. There is an entire module on emotional healing from Lyme. It's very, very, very comprehensive. And so with that, you get the video lessons, You get PDF handouts of all the notes. So if you are more visual and you like to go back and have something to read, you'll get the PDFs. There are guides in there. There's a diet guide, Lyme diet guide. There is a detoxification guide. And then there's a couple of bonus lectures, one on using essential oils to treat Lyme and one on CBD and Lyme. So it's amazing value. Like, there is so much information in there. So if you're working with another practitioner and you're quite happy working with that practitioner, but you just want to make sure you know all the things, then I highly recommend Lyme Ed for that. So you can check it out at lyme-ed.com. And it's an amazing resource. It's been very popular so far. And so I just wanted to make sure you knew about that as well. All right, see you later.